All right, we are back for video number 2, which will start on step 14. We're going to, in this video, make all the exterior pockets, or well, not the front pocket, obviously, but the 2 end pockets and the back slip pocket, and then assemble the exterior. So hopefully I can do that in not too much time. I don't like the videos to be more than an hour a piece. So the first thing before I do step 14, this part would be done. Oh, and also I have the window open, so in case any, I don't know if there's any weird noises. This would be done at the beginning when you attach your interfacing. The side panels have a separate foam piece to cut the interfacing, and that's for at the end so that the bag, it kind of will fold down where that is. So that allows it to do that. But with the foam, it's not going to be attached there. So we're going to do a top stitch line, and then this will also help the bag to like fold down properly at the end. You'll see. Okay, so this stitching line is not on your pattern piece. I did away with that. It was confusing. So what you'll do to attach that foam there, what I do anyway, you could just sew it from the back side and use like a 1/4 inch or something seam allowance. Or I like to stitch from the right side just because I think it looks prettier. So I am laying my foam, side panel foam pattern piece on top, and I just put it where there's about a 1/4 inch hanging off the bottom. So then you know you're about a 1/4 inch from the top of it, and draw a line. And the only thing to remember here is that this stitching will be visible on the outside of your bag, obviously. So make sure you use like a coordinating thread. So black, I'm using black, and this will be a straight stitch. And yeah, so when you attach your foam, you're only going around those 3 sides, and then this is going to be a straight stitch. So I just thought I would do that on a video since it's something a little bit different. And then I'm just going to sew directly along that line. Hopefully the video is not dark. It seems a little bit dimmer in here now, but I know when I turn on my sewing machine light, it like, I don't know, drowns out the video. You can't see well. Okay. Where are my scissors? Alright, and then that pink chalk line, we'll just rub off. Alright, so then we have a nice stitch line there, and it will help the bag to fold at the end, right? Alright, and I'm going to repeat that process on this one because I didn't do either of them. So as soon as I finish this, I want to start working on my next pattern, which I'm pretty excited about. I actually have like 2 that I want to do at the same time, so I don't know how I'll do that because I'm really excited about them both. So I need to decide which one to do first. I have so many patterns, I mean, that I want to make. Bags, I don't know. My head's just so full of all these different ideas I have, so we'll see. But I'm super excited to start the next one. The Dig Rag kind of took me a while. I don't know if I was just in a little sewing rut, I think. Busy with like my real job, or I don't want to say real job, but my 8 to 5 job. This is a pretty real job too, so. My chair's creaking, I'm sorry. Alright, so there we go. Now let's get started with step 14. So we are taking the exterior and lining side pocket panels and place them right sides together. Sew together along the top straight edge only. Okay. Let me check. Okay. You guys can see this okay. All right. So we will clip the top only. I did not, with my exterior being an upholstery weight, I did not interface that piece. So it should be okay for just a pocket. So, all right, now 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do the other one now and top stitch both at the same time. So right sides together, pin across the top or clip. I almost always anyway, say pin even though I'm clipping. Now, I'm going to go over to my ironing board, flip these so they're wrong sides together, and press, and then I'll be back. All right, I have pressed them both wrong sides together. Now I'm going to top stitch along both of the seams, and then I will sew all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance to baste it. So I'm going to go ahead and clip those layers together. Just so that everything stays in place. And that's really why we're basting it. We're gonna create the pleats in the pocket on this step, and you don't want everything to shift. Shoot, okay. So I'm going to first top stitch here. I changed my stitch length to my longer top stitching length of 4. And I'll top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the seam. And my dog's barking. And then I just continue around the sides and bottom using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, hang on just a minute. Alright. Close the window. Close the window in my living room so we can't hear the dog bark, because, you know, people are not allowed to walk down our street, or she will bark at them. We can't drive down our street. We can't park on the street. Nothing. This is apparently Daisy's street. So, alright, now I'm going to top stitch this one along the seam. 1/8 inch seam allowance again. And then here we'll use a 1/4 inch and just baste all the way around. You can change this while you're basting to your longest stitch length if you want. It doesn't have to be like exact 1/4 inch, just don't go more than 1/2 inch or it will show on your finished bag. Alright. Trim the threads. So next up, we are transferring the pleat marks from the side panel pocket pattern piece to the bottom right side of the side panel pocket. So here is my side panel pocket pattern piece. It sounds like a tongue twister. And just line the bottom edge up. The top edge won't match anymore because we sewed that part. So first I mark the center, and then slide this up just a little bit like that, and then mark there and mark there. Flip over, line up the side. It should match with your center mark, and then I just fold this back and then mark here and mark here. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this one as well. You know, it's easier to mark this side first. All right. Mark the center, flip over, all right, so we have all those marks. So now what you'll do, pinch the fabric lining sides together at the second mark, then bring that second mark down onto the first mark and pinch to create a pleat. Repeat to pinch the fabric lining sides together at the third mark, then bring that mark down onto the fourth mark to create the second pleat. Let me show you what that means. So this is the first mark, second mark, third mark, fourth mark, fifth mark. So, well, we're calling this first, second, third, fourth. Sorry, not the center, but pinch wrong sides together. So our lining sides, the lining sides together, pinch that together, and then bring that mark down on top of that first mark. Pin that in place. And then at this third mark, pinch lining sides together and bring that down on top of the fourth mark. So maybe in my directions, I didn't have you mark the centers. I don't think so. But I like to use that to line it up on the pocket, so. All right, so now you'll stitch right where those, just along the bottom of those pleats. Baste them in place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I like to back stitch over that. And then again with the second. All right, and then we'll do that with this also. So second mark, pinch together, lining sides together, and bring that down on top of the first mark. and pin that in place. And then pinch lining sides together at the 3rd mark and bring that down on top of the 4th mark and pinch that, or clip that in place. All right, and now again we'll base the pleat using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm actually just going to sew all the way down to the other one. Just make sure everything stays lined up. All right. So now that we have those pleats in place, we'll go on to step 16, which we are going to place the assembled side panel pocket onto the exterior side panel and then sew around. So when you do this, if you had marked the centers, you can mark the center on this panel as well and line your centers up, which is actually what I think I'll do. Just to make sure that I have things even. I like to mark centers or match up centers when I can. All right. So let's take one pocket and match those centers up. And then work your way around up the sides, which the side corner or the bottom corners there should match as well. And then the pocket will bow away from the side panel at the top because it's wider. And that's why we put the pleats there, so that the pocket is big enough to hold things. All right. And the top of each edge should be 3 inches down from the top. So if we measure, and it is. All right, now pin the second one also. All right, so in my break between video 1 and video 2, I made my kids lunch and they got to eat. I didn't eat yet, so we'll see if I survive the whole exterior before I need to stop and have lunch. It is almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I didn't eat lunch yet, so just lots of coffee. All right, so we will now base these pockets to the side panel. See, and then that way you have a side pocket that's deep enough. I mean, if you wanted to put bottles in there, if you're making this as a traveler bag, you can put water bottles in there. Somebody said they were going to put wine bottles in there. I mean, or you could put your wine bottles on the inside. Put your plastic wine glasses on the outside, maybe. hopefully, I started this with a full bobbin, so hopefully it can get me through the exterior and I don't have to stop to wind bobbin. Alright, both side pockets and side panels are done. But they look nice. Alright, so now we are going to insert our magnetic snaps. So here is the exterior back panel, and we want the lining pocket panel, and then here's my exterior pocket panel, slip pocket panel. Get a magnetic snap. Alright, and I'm using nickel hardware with this, but I don't have nickel snaps, so don't tell anybody. It'll be down inside the pocket. And then I like to use a scrap of interfacing. So usually I'll just use something that's already in the pattern I'm making. So this pattern uses Peltex, so I use a scrap of Peltex in a couple spots. Alright, so we want to use the pattern piece to measure and mark our snap placements. Alright, so on the exterior main panel, I don't use Peltex since I'm putting it through foam. That will be plenty. So on the right side, measure or use the pattern piece to mark the snap placement and just mark the center of it. And I always, might seem stupid or redundant, I don't know. I always flip it to check from that side too to make sure that nothing shifted, that my snap still shows in the same spot. Okay, so that one, and we want to mark here as well. Line that up on the edge, and here I'll mark it with this black pen. Flip it, make sure that shows up the same in the same spot. See, that one actually looks like it's off a little bit. Maybe I just don't have it lined up right. Okay, that'll work. Move that pattern piece aside. So now what we're going to do is, we'll do this one first. Take one of the washers that comes with your magnetic snap and lay it on your fabric. Line the dot in the center up, and then mark both of the parts for the, what do you call those? The arms? I don't know. But mark both of those lines, and then use a seam ripper to very carefully poke it through your foam and your exterior fabric, and hold that taut and cut only along those lines. Now it's a good idea here, let me grab, to secure that where you just cut it so that your fabric doesn't fray. Just put a line of fray check or a something similar that stops fraying along those lines. And we're going to put the female side of the magnetic snap here. So that's the one that has the indent. Poke the prongs through the back. Put the washer over the back prongs, and then fold them in. Some people fold them out, and I think that over time, opening and closing that, it can cause the prongs to open. And I think when they're closed to the center that they don't do that as easily. I usually grab something that smush them down harder. Alright, so we have one snap installed. With the lining snap, we will mark, let's see, and you could also put a scrap of foam over the snap on the other side. Mark our lines and then cut. And this is 1 layer of fabric and 1 layer of woven interfacing. So over time that would definitely rip without something else. And then I will use this, and I'm just going to make 2 marks for the prongs and cut those out carefully. Hopefully I don't stab myself. All right, and then take your male half of the magnetic snap and insert it into those holes, and then place the scrap of Peltex on the back, and that'll just help to reinforce those holes there. Oh, and I forgot to use, I want to put some fray check on there, so I'll just put it on from the back side. All right. Okay, so our snap is now installed on both halves. I am going to set aside that exterior main panel. And now we are going to take our pocket panels, right sides together, and line up the top edge. And then we'll sew along that top edge only. Do it this way. I think it shows better when I have, or I don't know. My lining seems to be a little bit less wide, so maybe it shrunk. But I ironed it. It's no big deal though. Okay. So now we are going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance to sew along the top of this. I'm going to now go to the ironing board and I'll press this top seam and put these wrong sides together, and then I'll be back. Okay. I have these now pressed wrong sides together. So we are going to top stitch here and then baste around the pocket. So what I like to do is just clip the layers together a few times so that when I baste it, I know I'm catching the lining. Hang on just one moment. All right, I am back. Sorry about that. So we are going to now top stitch along the top seam that we pressed. I don't want any of my lining to show there. Oh well, it might a little bit. Just top stitch using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Oh, you know, actually, there's not really a need. We're not going to baste that pocket together right now, because we'll just be basting it onto this, so I'll leave those snaps there. Okay, snap your magnetic snap, and then clip this onto the main panel, and then we're going to base the pocket into place. So really, it would be adding an extra step to base the pocket. And the dog's barking again because somebody beeped their horn. You also cannot beep. Okay. One more snap or clip. Alright, and now base the pocket on. And I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The back panel is done. And now we will take the exterior bottom panel, which in the pattern I have it as a contrast, but I wanted black for this one, so it's the same. And place those right sides together. And then pin along this bottom edge. Gosh, I feel like my pins are so, or my clips are so loud when I get them out. I think we'll be able to make the entire exterior before I stop to eat. I am very hungry though. Alright, maybe one more. Alright, and we will use a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And a shorter stitch length, which I use 3 for that. And here you have, in between the foam and the exterior fabric on the bottom panel, you have that stabilizer in there. So Caltex, if that's what you use. And right now you should be sewing next to it, not through it, and that's why there's that 1/2 inch gap around each side. Alright, and now what we'll do is press this toward the bottom panel. You want the seam allowance to be toward that bottom panel, so this way. So I will pause the video and go press that. Okay. Now we want to top stitch along the seam through the bottom panel and through that seam allowance. So make sure as you sew that the seam allowance is on that side. And this is just at a standard 1/8 inch top stitch seam allowance. Now we will do the same thing with the front panel. And this is where we have the pocket attached, so it's a little bit trickier. And this is the part where you have the thick seams. So, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with foam. When it's thick with foam, my machines don't have a problem with it, since the foam compresses so much as you sew over it. So, but if your machine does not like thick areas, then you could potentially have problems here. And even more so here, or when you top stitch this part, after sewing this, that could be more of a problem for you. So keep that in mind. I had to close the window when the dog was barking. You know, it's getting hot in here again. It's a little too early in the year to put an air conditioner in the window. Oh, my sewing room is not actually like part of the house. It's an enclosed front porch that's finished. So I have to have a separate air conditioner out here. So that should be fun because I'm not sure where I'll put it with all my stuff. Okay. So 1/2 inch seam allowance again, you'll be sewing through the whole pocket at the bottom. So just take your time. Make sure you back stitch. Alright, and it might be beneficial here to, you know, keep your clips on and just move them out as you go so that they're out of the way of your presser foot. Lift up the foot to get it over that seam where the pocket's attached. See though, my machine doesn't have a problem. My domestic would also not have a problem. Maybe I'm going to go double check that. And this is through Home Deck weight fabric. I have foam interfacing attached to that. I have Shape Flex attached to that. And then I have the foam on the back, and then quilting cotton, Shape Flex, and then the front pocket is actually flannel, so that's thicker than quilting cotton, with Shape Flex and foam. So a lot of layers. I'm going to pause this for a minute. I can't take the video over there, but I'm just going to go see how it does. It's gray thread, you'll be able to see. Just 1 minute. Okay, so as you can see, this line here, I just sewed that on my brother. Has black in the bobbin. It's a PC 420, so it's like a project runway model. I think it was around $300, so in that range. So it's not like a base model $80 sewing machine. I'm not saying you can't make bags on those, but it would be more of a challenge. But on that brother PC 420, I have made several bags. You do not need an industrial machine to sew bags, and as you can see, it just went through that with no problem. The biggest problem that I have on my domestic machine instead of the industrial is that the machine comes out here at the end instead of being flat like this, so that's more challenging. And maybe the allowance, the amount of space you can get under the foot, that can be challenging. Other than that, I have made many bags on a domestic machine, and it was fine. I prefer using this, but that isn't an option for everybody to have an industrial sewing machine, and it seriously is not a necessity. And I'm not paying attention and got off on my seam allowance, so let's see. Let's trim this and go back over this spot where I messed up, and I just broke my top thread somehow. And I do miss when I sewed on my brother and it would thread. My hands are shaky, all that coffee and no food. I miss my needle threader feature. Okay. Okay, so that is all sewed. I say okay a lot. I'm going to go press this again. Look at that, looks nice. Press that seam allowance toward the bottom panel, and then we'll top stitch this. I actually think I don't even need to press it. It's going that way anyhow. Oh, and I just unthreaded my needle again. Okay, let's get that rethreaded. Trying really hard to keep myself out of the videos because, yeah, you don't want to see what I look like right now. All right, that's rethreaded. So you kind of have to scrunch this up to get it in here. Just make sure your seam allowance is toward the bottom panel, and you sew through the bottom panel and through the seam allowance. And I want this at a stitch length 4 to 4.25, whichever for my top stitching. And just as you go, make sure that the seam allowance is getting caught in that stitching. Oh, and also, you know, with these thick layers and stuff, you might want to use a heavier needle. I think I have a size 16 in here now, and I'm not having any problems with it. So maybe for a domestic, you might want like a jeans needle. Don't use a leather needle because that has a blade and it will actually cut your fabric. So all those raw edges that we had from the pocket earlier are enclosed now in either this seam or this seam. Or well, the seam, I guess, actually where you attached it to the front main panel. So here's our back side. And now we are going to trim the seam allowance out of the edges. Bring my computer back over here. I'll try to follow along with the directions as best I can. So, all right, and I'm going to cut the seam allowance just from the ends, so maybe like an inch or so, just so that you have a little less bulk there. It's kind of optional. Don't cut my fingers off. Oh, I really need to eat. Hopefully I don't get hangry on my video. All right, and one more. Now we are going to mark the centers on the sides here. So to do that, probably the easiest way would be to use, well, that's actually, nah, that's a bad idea. I need a ruler. Does anybody know where my ruler is? All right, well, we're going to use this giant ruler. So let's see, it is currently 7 inches wide, so half of that is 3.5. So all the way to the edge and make a mark at 3.5, and then repeat that on the other side. It's a little bit big of a ruler to maneuver. Okay, so those centers are marked within the seam allowance, and then side panels. When we made the side panels earlier, we marked the centers. So in doing that, you can match those centers up with these centers. And we're going to clip all the way around, and I like to sew with the side panel facing up. So I put my clips that way first. This is where the bag's getting big, and it's going to be a little harder to keep it on the video. So we'll see how this works out. All right, so I pinned the bottom, and then I want to next clip the top corner on each side. And this side. All right, and then we'll pin, clip, whatever, down around the corners. Oh, I've been caught up in my needle over here. All right, and the other side. Like making these stick bags, I kind of go through a lot of clips, break them, whatever. So I buy these cheap ones off Amazon, and then I don't feel so bad when I'm throwing them away or breaking them and buying new ones. So, all right. Now that we have that clipped all the way around, I'm going to sew with the side panel facing up at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here will be the part where I run out of bobbin thread. That's how it usually works, and I'll sew all the way around before I notice it. Or top stitching. It's usually top stitching or in the middle of a curve. You see how I lift the bag up as I go? I find that's the easiest way to sew around curves. This is a pretty big bag. So. So I've stitched all the way around that. What I will do now is take a look at my seam. Make sure I didn't get any wrinkles. This is really hard to show. It's black and dark in there. As long as you're satisfied with that, you can go ahead and trim your seam allowance. And then repeat that process to attach the other pocket. Or the other end panel, I'm sorry. And then our exterior will be completed. I'm not going to do the second one on video because I need to go eat lunch, and it's the exact same process as attaching the first one. So that was through step number 21. Video number 3, we will go ahead and assemble the lining. So, yep, that's it. So your exterior should be complete after you attach that other end panel.